Is the Bruce Hawker, former Labor campaign guru, head of the Campaigns and Communications Group, and Jeanette Cotterill, Managing Director of Executive Council Australia. Bruce, what was Malcolm Turnbull thinking?
Well, you know, for a start, why would you believe an undertaking from a bunch of journalists that they're not going to publish that? I mean, who is sillier, the people that gave the undertaking or the fellow that actually believed them? I mean, you wouldn't believe that if you're a fifth-class student, you know, in a local primary school, if you were told what was going to be planned. So that's point one. Point two, I think he was probably smarting still somewhat from the treatment that Trump dished out to him just a few months ago, and this was his chance probably to get back at him, because he knows that it probably will get back to Trump. I read the other day, something just on this point, I read the other day that Trump actually goes through those responses that people make to him on Twitter, and if he doesn't like what people are saying, he'll block them. There are actually hundreds of people who are blocked by Donald Trump, who sits up in the middle of the night going through and reading his Twitter. So for sure he's going to believe, for sure he's going to see this thing about it.
But Jeanette, you were actually there last night. Now, it's all out there, so I guess you can discuss what's already out there publicly, but it seemed to be going down a treat with the crowd.
Oh, well, I guess there goes the refugee deal. Look, it was funny. It was really, really hysterical. It was, and this is the night of nights in Canberra where everyone kind of gets all dressed up and looks gorgeous and just has a laugh at themselves. And the idea was the Prime Minister gets up, Leader of the Opposition gets up. It's tradition. I've been going to every single ball since it started. Some do it really well, some really do it badly. And I remember Tony Abbott cannot poke fun at himself for life or money. And he made fun of himself. He happened to have a serious poke at the President of the United States on the way through, and it was hysterical. And I think, you know, it's been tweeted all over the world. It's running on CNN. It's all over the world. The US Embassy has already put out a statement saying, hey, you know, it's like the White House press gallery ball, our dinner. We take it in the light humour it was intended. So I don't think, of course, it's an international...
What, are they consulted with Donald Trump? Because I think he was abed at the time. So I don't think he's woken up yet.
They were like madly putting out their press statement and going, quick, head off the international incident, you know, turn back the warships. It's going to be very funny when the President wakes up and sees what humour he's in. I guess it depends on what side of the bed he wakes up on.
Yes,
but,
you know, it depends
it's funny.
What you mean by funny. But see, because, Bruce, you know, we can laugh at it and we can say all that kind of stuff, but fundamentally, we're talking about a Prime Minister poking fun at our biggest ally, who's notoriously thin-skinned, in the interests of Australia. I don't know that that is smart.
Well, I don't know either, if it's smart either, frankly, but I'm glad that people got a laugh out of it. And Trump is such an idiosyncratic, weird character anyway. You wouldn't know how he's going to respond to anything. I mean, the unprovoked attack he launched on Turnbull in their first telephone hookup was probably an indication of it.
It was hardly unprovoked.
Well, I think Turnbull would feel... Well, Turnbull would probably feel pretty aggrieved by it. But anyway,
I think he's got a lot to feel aggrieved about at the moment. But listen, talking about Turnbull, here he is today explaining himself on radio.
It's light-hearted, it's affectionate, good-natured, and the butt of my jokes was myself
and Donald Trump.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I think it was more good-natured than that, I think. But listen, it's fun. You've got to have a laugh. We've got to lighten up. Stressful business politics.
That was Malcolm Turnbull talking to Tom Elliott on 3AW. But Jeanette, I wonder what now, because Turnbull in February suspended one of his own staff after she posted a picture of a T-shirt reading "Tuck Frump" on social media. What should he do to himself?
Look, I think it's one of those great things that it was always a good idea at the time. Look, he hopefully someone said, by the way, Malcolm, you know, this great fun joke, it is in front of 1,000 journalists. It's probably going to be captured by someone in the audience and leaked. I wouldn't be overly surprised, and maybe that I'm being a bit too conspiratorial, that the office of the Prime Minister leaked it themselves, because he will actually go up the polls over this. And I think this will be a funny thing.
Macron, the new French Prime Minister, made a big point and leaked against himself, saying how hard he had shaken Donald Trump's hand because he was every bit a tougher hombre as the president. So you might be right. But listen, about Trump, there's something more serious, Bruce, I want to talk to you about. The left's hate speech about Donald Trump. Everyone likes piling in, and the claims against him sometimes have been frankly unbelievable, you know, like the fake claims that he colluded with Russia, for instance.
Well, that hasn't been established either way yet.
That is fake. The comedian Kathy Griffin, for instance, posing with what looks like his severed head. Then there was that performance of Julius Caesar in New York that had Donald Trump as Caesar being murdered. I mean, I just wonder, it's just 24/7 hate, and I wonder if it's become too dangerous because yesterday a top Republican that's the House Majority Speaker, Steve Scalise, and 4 others were shot by a Bernie Sanders supporter who said he wanted to take Trump down. Scalise in a critical condition. Has the Trump hatred just got way out of control?
Well, America is a terribly divided nation now, and I don't want to go and start saying who started it, but Trump certainly and his supporters were heavily involved in vilification of women, Hispanics, blacks, gays. You know, there was no end to the people that in that election campaign that he was going after. That, in turn, but hang on, let me finish this. Let me finish. But that in turn gave rise to response. Most of it was, sensible. Every now and then, though, a lunatic comes along, like this character obviously was, and wants to go killing people. It happens from lunatics from the left. It happens from lunatics from the right. That's what lunatics do. And frankly, you know, when the extreme left and the extreme right get together, they basically meet in the middle. So it is a feature of American politics now that there is so much division, so much hatred there that, frankly, it's a terrible, terrible thing that's happened. And I hope it serves as a warning to everybody in the United States that when you engage in hate speak, whether it comes from the left or the right, it is going to encourage maniacs like this character to go out and do what he did. But you can't blame Bernie Sanders for that. And Sanders was in the Congress tonight, deploring what had happened.
Yeah, but we can always deplore the consequences of our own hate speech. I mean, Jeanette, the rise of violence, political violence on the left, you've seen it in America in the campus riots against Milo Yiannopoulos and others, and including authors. You've seen the Black Lives Matter racism that created a situation where 5 white police were gunned down at one rally. You've seen this outpouring of vicious hate speech from the left as well. That's not excusing any from the right, but from the left that I really think needs to be addressed now.
Oh, look, I totally agree. I'm all for free speech, and I think we've got to watch the danger of cutting that back. But we have to watch our language as both politicians and commentators. We have to watch what we're inflaming. I mean, as Bruce said, there are a lot of lunatics out there, and right now in the political sphere across the world, we're at the edges. We're at the hard right and the hard left. And we have to be careful of how we use that power, and we've got to be responsible. And I was on with you, Andrew, with the horrible severed head incident. That was disgusting, and there was no excusing that. And comedy and comedians have a responsibility to watch their language, to be careful of appreciating that there are some people out there who will be motivated out of hate, out of fear, out of anger, to cause some serious harm to good people.
Yeah, you know what it is? I wonder, Bruce, whether one of the things driving it is, clickbait idea. When the more outrage you cause, the more clicks you get, the more famous you are. So you get a reward for bad behaviour, and moderation doesn't get clicks. Moderation never gets clicks. Is that where we're at? Well,
I think we are largely at in that space right now, and with a lot of media, and and frankly, that's something which we have to be very, very careful about, whether it comes from the left or the right. And I mean, as somebody who's more on the left than the right, I tend to, I guess, be more upset when I see it coming from the right. But it behoves everybody who would have a moderate view of politics to say, well, if it's coming from the left too, then you've got to come down, cracking down on it, just like you would from the right. It's a place that no one really in politics, except for a few people on the extremes, want to be. Most people want to go about living their lives in a safe and respectful way towards others. But it's getting harder and harder when you're bombarded with this stuff, particularly on social media, constantly. And people can go a bit ratty over it. And we saw a consequence of that today, and it was absolutely tragic. Absolutely tragic that man is fighting for his life now.
But listen, such as the time, maybe one sort of clickbait thing too, like we're talking about this, the joke by Malcolm Turnbull at Trump's expense. But for most Australians, of course, the lived reality of their lives is probably much more affecting it. Was the news today, Jeanette, that the unemployment rate went down surprisingly far to 5.5%. Now, that's some good news to build on, but I don't know, does the government getting any traction with its message about how it's going on the economy?
No, it's not, unfortunately. I mean, that was a good news story, and hopefully there's more good news for the Australian public to come. But, while the Liberal Party is tearing itself apart, it's the same way that Labor did, the same way that, one government after another never seems to learn from past mistakes, is doing it. No one is going to listen up to the good news. It's all white noise, and it's a great opportunity missed yet again and it's not just Turnbull's fault. It's the Conservative rump, then it's a tiny group of them, 20 of them, who want to take down the Prime Minister because they can't tolerate the fact that there is a socially progressive Prime Minister elected in his own right. And,
well, I don't know about progressive. I think that's a loaded term. I think it's regressive.
I think
socially regressive.
Right.
But on that point, on Jeanette's point, Bruce, about the resentment, I think there's a lot of Liberals now genuinely upset that they're being led by a Prime Minister. If they do lose the next election, it will be on a record of having contracted record debt, record spending, record power prices. That will be a legacy that will cost them not the next election, but the one after as well.
Well, it's even, that's quite amazing, isn't it, really, because Liberals have always prided themselves with fiscal rectitude. And we're going to find out tomorrow, for example, that gross debt is at $500 billion. That's more than, or that is double what it was when Labor left government in 2013. There's no ceiling on debt now. The so-called budget crisis seems to have evaporated. These are the things which get Conservative governments elected. Labor gets elected because it's going to do good things for pensioners and other people in the community, and therefore debt does tend to blow out a bit. But they elect Conservative governments because they think they're going to wind it back in again when it's gone too far. That seems to be the yin and yang of Australian politics. Well, under this guy, that has gone out the window. It wasn't just him. It was started under Abbott, frankly.
Yeah, but it's also the Senate. I think we always have to have a little asterisk. The Senate is stopping a lot.
But can I just say this? Can I just make one point about this? This really irritates me, this idea, keep blaming the Senate. If you don't like what's happening to your policy program and your legislative program, you have got an option to go to the Governor General and say, "Give me an election because I can't get my program through." And that's why they won't do it. That's why they won't do it.
It didn't work last time.
Jeanette, you're the great strategist, okay? So I'm going to put this to you. Here's what I don't understand. Tell me how you're sitting there in Liberal headquarters, you think this is a great idea. So you've seen Tony Abbott win an election against the odds, against the media elite, against the establishment by saying, I'm going to cut the carbon tax. I'm going to axe the tax. Then you get Malcolm Turnbull racing to an election saying, I'm going to bring back a carbon tax, a form of carbon tax. How did the Liberals think that switching from the strategy that won an election to the exact opposite is the way to go?
Well, because they changed leaders. I mean, this is political kryptonite for Turnbull, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he manages this. I mean, we know what threw him out as leader in 2009, and it was climate change. And he got thrown under the bus by the Nats and the hard right, and Turnbull was behind. Abbott was behind that. Now he's back. He's got this horrific document from the chief scientist, and it's not remember, it's not a report from the government. It's a report to the government. So Malcolm Turnbull can pick and choose what he wants. But it's something that's to resolve energy crisis, but everyone is going to be watching to see how he travels on the climate change issue, and he has a whole bunch of backbenchers and frontbenchers who would like him to actually collapse or implode under his, under the weight of climate change. I think it's going to be very, very tricky for Malcolm Turnbull to manage this over the next few months.
I think
You've seen this story, Bruce. Where's it going to end?
in tears, and I think there'll be Malcolm Turnbull's tears, and I think there'll be the tears of a lot of good people that have voted Liberal in the past and thought that Liberals were really Conservatives. And I think that's the problem that he's got. He came in a big backlash against Tony Abbott, and that was understandable. He looked like a voice of moderation and centrism, and he's just swung from one side to the other. He tries to do progressive things, and then the Conservative base inside his party starts dragging him back, so he looks inept. And but all these things go against what people who traditionally vote Liberal believe in. And so he's trying to sell them something which just does not sit well with them at all. And I think it's going to end up in the party room again, even though I think that is a really bad place for it to be resolved, because we saw what happened in the Labor Party when it went from Rudd to Gillard to Rudd again, and I was part and parcel of that whole process.
Yeah, but when it went back to Rudd again, at least you saved some seats. That's the difficulty. Bruce Hawker, Jeanette Cotterill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.